So, in the United States, one of the most frequently used and frankly most misinformed arguments I see used against those of us that support continued aid to Ukraine is the cost of that support, specifically the amount of money the United States is spending to support Ukraine. Those that want to cease aid to Ukraine throw numbers around, including the billions of dollars that supposedly is costing us to support Ukraine. And I've talked about this before when I said it's not like we're handing over bags of money to the Ukrainian government. Sure, we are providing direct financial support to fund necessary actions to continue prosecuting the war, but the majority of the money we give is in the US dollar value of the equipment that is donated to Ukraine. And it's equipment that actually we aren't really using that much. But here's the thing. If Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene want to throw around the costs of the war and throw it in the face of us that support Ukraine, I got to bring up the other side of that. And that is a side that we really don't ever talk about because it's somewhat faux pas, and frankly, it's somewhat shameful to talk about because it deals with profiting off the suffering of Ukrainians. And it is how the United States is financially benefiting from its support to Ukraine. And I'm purely doing this because I'm getting sick and tired of hearing how much money the United States is losing in Ukraine when those that say that completely ignore the massive amounts of advertising and research and development we are getting for military equipment and how much benefit our government and our military corporate industrial complex is receiving from support to Ukraine. And this is a benefit that both Republicans and Democrats get rewards from. I mean, we're talking about organizations that support both parties. You have Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, General Dynamics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are all military industrial complex companies, and the U.S. has by far the strongest military industrial complex in the world, whether you like to hear that or not. And again, like I said, it seems kind of gross to say that we are financially benefiting from the war in Ukraine, as well as all the suffering that comes with it. But when the anti-Ukrainian crowd can callously declare they're tired of spending money on Ukraine, I get a counter with my own callous information by telling them how much money the U.S. is actually making because of the world watching what is taking place in Ukraine. Sales of military weapons between the U.S. and foreign governments shot up nearly $52 billion in 2022, largely because U.S. allies in Europe are rushing to arm themselves in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This is an increase of 49%, a jump from $34.8 billion to $52 billion in just a year in military equipment sales. And that is just government sales. Shifting to direct commercial sales from the contractors to governments. So when Raytheon or Lockheed directly sell equipment to another country, that also grew. It went up from 103.4 billion to 153.7 billion. And by the end, and that's just 2021 to 2022. By the end of this year, the US is going to smash previous weapons orders by tens of billions of dollars. So again, if you get to bring up money, so do I. One of the biggest orders in 2022 was placed by Indonesia, which we see as trying to counter China in their region, was the approval of 36 F-15s worth $13.9 billion. In September of last year, the U.S. announced $1.1 billion in arms sales to Taiwan, including 60 Harpoon anti-ship missiles and 100 Sidewinder tactical air missiles. BRICS members are getting in on it. BRICS member India recently signed an agreement with the U.S. to purchase 31 MQ-9B Sea Guardian high-altitude unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, worth over $3 billion. This is going to help the Indian Navy stave off the Pakistani submarine fleets as well as Chinese. And they know that. Other BRICS member Brazil bought hundreds of Javelin missiles from the U.S. Future BRICS members, the UAE and Saudi Arabia, bought $5 billion in U.S. missile defenses. The Czech Republic and Romania purchased 32 F-35s worth $6.5 billion, and there are actually 23 countries that have ordered F-35s. Bulgaria bought 183 Strykers for an estimated cost of $1.5 billion. Poland ordered 96 Apaches worth $12 billion and then $15 billion in Patriot missiles as well as Abrams tanks on top of that. Germany is spending $3.5 billion to buy the U.S. Israeli Arrow missile. Even Switzerland, neutral Switzerland, is buying $3 billion in Patriot missiles. Japan bought $2 billion in Tomahawks. Multiple countries are buying Abrams tanks, and what I just listed is only about half of what has been purchased over the last 12 to 24 months. The US jumped from 33% to 40% in total global arms sales, while Russia, whose equipment is now seen as lackluster, saw a drop in global arms sales from 22% to 16%. The US outsells Russia in arms sales by a factor of 24%. That's enormous. China, who relies on much of its military tech, actually saw a drop in their military sales from 6% to 5% in total arms sales. France was the only other country to see an increase in arms sales from 7 to 11%. So the bottom line is, when you talk dollars and cents of war, which is a part of it, wars cost money. You can't just focus on the cost. When I see Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene and the entire MAGA crowd come out and say, we're spending so much money on Ukraine, we're losing billions of dollars despite the fact that it's less than 1% of our total GDP, less than 3 or 4% of our total military budget, which is generally focused on China and Russia, I have to turn around and say, well, let's calculate the benefit we're getting, because I can tell you, because of the performance of U.S. military equipment in Ukraine and because of the fear that China and Russia are now bringing and the instability they're bringing, the United States is making a lot of money on its military sales. And again, it seems kind of gross to say, but that is the reality. So again, if they can sit there and tell me without a care in the world that they don't want to help Ukraine because it costs money, I got to turn around and say, I want to help Ukraine because you know what? We can make money from it. That's not my primary reason. My primary reason is stopping Russia, bringing peace to Ukraine, allowing them to maintain their sovereignty. But at some point, we have to turn around and fight fire with fire on their statistics. And that's what I'm doing.